Hi everyone, welcome to the blog podcast here on the Leadership Adventure channel. I'm Marv McCarthy, your host. And today's episode is entitled Pendulums, Flywheels, and Gyroscopes. And most of us in leadership at this point have seen the proverbial life cycle chart. At the beginning of a project, when you're getting up and running, growth happens slowly. Then suddenly you begin to gain traction and things start to take off, and that's represented on the chart by a slight curve upward. If you've got a good thing or a winning product on your hand, this usually leads to a period of meteoric growth. At some point, sales will start to flatten out and you'll move into more of a maintenance mode. Then finally, inevitably, your product will reach its end of life and be supplanted by the latest and greatest that comes along behind it. So for leaders, each stage of this life cycle requires different leadership skills. Learning to navigate all phases successfully can be challenging, and that's because of the way we individually are wired. Today I'll try to illustrate the competencies needed in all these stages by using simple physical devices that we are all familiar with. In the early days, or what I like to refer to as the blank whiteboard period, you need to remain flexible and open to new ideas and possibilities. This can be represented by a pendulum. A pendulum is simply a weight suspended from a fixed point, which swings back and forth under the influence of gravity. For startups, it reflects the sometimes very different approaches to innovation and design. And during this stage, you absolutely need this. The best solutions often come from the least expected direction, so don't be afraid to let the pendulum swing back and forth a few times as you're narrowing your focus. Now, leaders that are designers by nature will naturally thrive in this stage. Once you launch the product or service and the growth begins taking place, however, the pendulum is no longer useful. A more appropriate metaphor at this stage is a flywheel. And a flywheel, I'm sure we've all seen them, is a rotating mechanical device that stores and releases rotational energy to maintain constant or increasing momentum. Flywheels represent the steady growth of momentum, which means it's time to stop swinging back and forth with different ideas and put all your energy into moving your product forward. A flywheel only rotates one direction, which for leaders suggests that during growth, you need to get all aspects of your company aligned for steady growth and for success. Consistency and focus are the key words here. Now, this growth period can be challenging, especially if your sales demand outpaces the growth of your infrastructure to keep up, which oftentimes happens. So therefore, some flexibility is still required to make necessary adjustments. Leaders that have both designer DNA and some refiner DNA will naturally do well during this phase. Now, finally, when things start to level off, the best metaphor becomes the gyroscope. A gyroscope is a mechanical device that uses the principles of angular momentum to maintain stability and resist changes in orientation. I remember years ago at a science exhibit when I was a kid that featured a gyroscope. It had handles on both sides, and the challenge was to move it around a pivot point into a different direction. When it was running at full speed, it was almost impossible to change the direction of it. So the goal at this stage, as you're approaching product end of life, is to try and maintain stability in your product or even squeeze out just a little more growth. The focus becomes maximum life as you are preparing new products to replace the one that's approaching its end of life. Staying the successful course you've established is critical here, along with making small improvements or refinements for maximum life extension. So leaders who are refiners by nature will naturally thrive in this stage. I've found over the years that it is rare for a leader to possess equally strong skills in both designing and refining. Normally we lean more toward one end of the spectrum. I have a blend of both, but I love the design phase, for example. The key to sustainable success then, as your product moves through these different stages on the life cycle chart, is to bring a team around you that has a balance of both design DNA and refining DNA. So don't be afraid as the leader to hand over the reins to someone on your team who is more gifted in one area than you are to help navigate through the various stages in a product's life. And by the way, all these principles apply equally well to services or other programs. Well, that's all for today, you guys. I appreciate you listening as always, and I hope you have a good week, and I will see you next time right here on Leadership Adventure.